Well, hey guys, it's Darwin, and today I want to share some more of my top backpacking tips and tricks that I've learned over the last 9 years and 14,000 miles of hiking. All the little things that I do every single time I head out into the backcountry to make my time on trail more efficient. Today's video is going to be specifically centered around food and cooking. All the little things that I've done over and over and over again to make getting calories easier, more efficient, and more enjoyable when I'm out doing my hikes. And a lot of these things are kind of no-brainers and honestly kind of goofy, but I get questions about them all the time in my trail videos because I guess it's just stuff that people see me do all the time. So today I figured I would share some of these little secrets with you. So to jump right into it, the first tip or trick or hack that I have for you really comes down to calories and how many calories that I aim for when I'm out on a hike. For years, people have asked me how many calories I try to get every single day I'm on trail, whether that's a smaller backpacking trip or a through hike where I'm hiking 20 to 30 miles a day. And the truth is, I've never been a calorie counter. I've never tried to find the exact amount of calories that I need on trail a day because that would just be maddening. But I do follow one simple rule when I'm picking out food for my backpacking trips, and that is the 100-to-1 rule. Now, I've talked about this in other videos, but I always try to get at least 100 calories per ounce of food. I mean, hell, I try to get more than 100 calories per ounce, but by following the 100-to-1 rule, I know that for every pound of food, or 16 ounces, that I'm going to get at least 1,600 calories. So for an example, this is actually a day of food for me. This is leftover from a trip. I went out for a 3-day trip. We ended up only doing 2 nights, so I had some food left over. So what's in this bag is some coffee, obviously, a breakfast, 3 snack bars, and a dinner. Now, I don't really carry a lunch on trails anymore. I used to carry tortillas and cheese and stuff like that. Now, basically all I do for lunch is I will save one of my snack bars, usually the one with the most calories, and I supplement in a bag of chips, which tend to have quite a bit of calories in them. But just for this, without the chips, I have, 1 pound, 4 ounces of food here. So 1 pound, 4 ounces in this bag, and the calories that are in this bag come out to 2,310 calories. So it's quite a bit of calories for this small footprint in my bag. So for me, I try to eat what I want. I try to look for things that look good, but with that 100-to-1 rule, it typically makes sure that I get enough calories every day when I'm on the trail. All right, so the next tip or trick or hack that I have for you actually pertains to this. For years, I've been doing this. I've probably talked about it in another video, but I always separate my food out per day. So as you can see, I have this gallon Ziploc bag and I have on here day 3. I always do this. And I do it for a handful of reasons. Number one, it makes it easy every single day on the trail. When I wake up, I pull out the day of food that I need for that entire day. So it's easy, it's organized in my food bag. Number two, that really helps when I go to resupply or set up my food. I know that if I'm doing a resupply on day 1, because I'm going out of a town, I've probably already eaten breakfast, maybe even lunch, so I'm only gonna need snacks and dinner for the rest of that day. And then we'll say day 2 and day 3, I'm gonna need breakfast, snacks, and dinner. And then the last day, because I'm going into a town or I'm finishing my hike and I'm probably gonna go get pizza or a burger or something after I get off the trail, I'm only gonna need breakfast and snacks. So it really helps me figure out what I need, especially if I'm getting into a town on a resupply. I'm not overbuying food. I can grab these bags and easily figure out what I'm gonna need for the next stretch of the trail. The other thing that this really helps me do, and probably the main reason I do this, is manage my food throughout the day. I am known to be a bit of an overeater on the trail. I have a high metabolism, and in the past, I've done things like just gotten extra hungry on the trail, whether it was a hard day or not, and overeaten my food. So I'll eat a lot of food on day 2, and then I still have 2 more days on trail, and by day 4, I've already run out of food, and then I'm hungry all day until I get into a town or get to my car. So this really helps me manage and make sure that I'm not overeating my food. I know that on day 3, I have everything in this bag. And then the last thing is it really helps me manage the space in my pack. For years, people ask me, how do you get all of your gear and like 3 or 4 days of food into something like a 35 or 40 liter pack? And this is one of the ways that I do that. So as you can see, like I said, this is a full day of food. So this is a dinner, this is a breakfast, this is 3 snacks, and it fits into a pretty small package. Because I'm able to kind of stack everything and put it together in one of these, I'm able to put these in. We'll say this is day 4, I can put that at the bottom of my food bag, then day 3, then day 2, and I'll say we'll put day 1 kind of slotted on the side. I'm able to manage that space within my food bag, not leaving any gaps or anything. So it's a good way to save on space. And then speaking of that, the other thing that I make sure that I do before I put my food into these bags or into my food bag is by getting rid of extra packaging and letting out air. So one of the big culprits of space wasting in a backpack is just air. It's things like, I always make sure that I carry a bag of chips. I'm a big chip eater on the trail, but you have this big bag of chips here and the chips kind of stop there and you have all this packaging and all this air. A lot of the backpacking meals, same thing. You might have a full-on meal like this, where the meal stops there, but you have all of this packaging. So what I like to do a lot of the times is I will actually open up certain packaging and I'll let the air out. Other times I'll simply just transfer food to other smaller Ziploc bags. A good example is for years, I used to resupply on this a lot on trail, this Near East couscous, whether I was cold soaking or cooking, but as you can see, it comes in this big box. So I would buy this, I would buy some Ziploc bags, and then I would just easily open this up, take out that package, open up the Ziploc bag, dump it in there. A lot of times I will dump the seasoning straight into here, and then boom, I have a meal in a small package versus this. So it's really breaking down a lot of that packaging. And then speaking of chips, my next tip and trick that I have really comes down to chips and nuts and cereals. Every single time that I take chips out onto the trail, I will actually let the air out of the bag to pack it down smaller in my pack. So as you can see, like this, stacked in here, it's not taking a lot of space. I will go one step further and I actually crunch up all of my chips into crumbs. Now you're probably like, why the hell would you do that? Gross, crumbs? Well, I do this for a handful of reasons. The biggest reason is because I eat all of my chips and nuts and anything else that's small like that with a spoon. And the reason I do this is, number one, I have no clue what's on my hands. Some days when you're out on the trail or some trips, you can go days without being able to properly wash your hands. So you have no clue what's actually on your fingers and your hands. So I don't want to put my hand down into a bag of chips and then put that into my mouth. It's kind of nasty. So number one, it helps me not have to touch my chips. Also, if I'm eating something like Cheetos or Doritos, I don't want to get orange, gross Cheeto fingers. So it keeps my hand out of the bag. The other reason is because what I found with eating something like chips, eating chip crumbs with the spoon, is it actually makes my chips last longer. Have you ever noticed when you open a bag of chips, you'll open it up just to eat a few chips and in about 20 minutes, you've eaten almost the entire bag? I do that a lot as well. So when I'm out on trail, if I pick up a single bag of chips, this is supposed to last me for 3 to 4 days. But I know me, and I know that if I open this bag of chips on day 1 and I start eating a couple, I'll end up eating 75% of the bag. And then by day 2, I'll eat the rest of them. And then for the next couple days, I won't have any. Well, what I've noticed is by doing this, it helps me manage how much I'm actually eating. And I've been able to get food to last longer. So for anyone that's kind of asked that when they see it in my videos and they see me just eating like spoonfuls of chips out of a bag, that would be why. All right, so for the next couple of food hacks, I guess they're kind of more centered around specifically cooking and or cold soaking, depending on what you like to do. So the first tip or trick or hack that I have for you when it comes to cooking is something that I talked about years ago in a video, and I bet most people have seen that, and that is all about one of these cook koozies, one of these rehydration koozies. So when I was on the Appalachian Trail in 2015, we were eating a lot of these Knorr rice sides, mainly because these are cheap. So I guess this is a hack within itself. These are pretty expensive, right? Anywhere from $8 to $12 a piece when you're talking about a backpacking meal. Well, when you're doing something like a long distance hike, obviously having this every single day for 4 months is gonna get super expensive, and you're not gonna find these at a lot of resupply points. So through hikers tend to eat a lot of things like Knorr rice sides, instant mashed potatoes, like I said, couscous. So we were eating a lot of these Knorr rice sides. What we found out was the inside of these packets are actually foil lined, which means that you can tear the top off of it, pour your hot water right into here, fold it over and seal it up, put this in here, set that, let it set for about 10 to 20 minutes, and when you come back, it's rehydrated. It's ready to eat. I usually just pour that in my cook cup. I'll put some tuna or maybe Spam or something like that in there to add calories and more protein, and then boom, I have a meal. And maybe I only paid like $3 for that meal versus $8 or $9 for this meal. So it's a really efficient hack to get a good meal out on the trail. And like I said, you can make one of these pretty easy with something like this Reflectix material. So I picked this up at like Home Depot, I think. And some duct tape or Gorilla tape and a little bit of Velcro, and you can pretty much pick that up anywhere. And I've done that a lot over the years, but I don't really use this as much anymore. I ended up actually picking up a pre-made one just because it's lighter, it's smaller, it takes up less room. This is a rehydration pouch by a company called Big Sky International. I picked this up mainly because not only can I put something like a Knorr rice side in it to be cheaper, but a full-size dehydrated meal also fits in here. So I've been using this a lot in my winter hiking and some of my mountaineering trips to keep my food hot and let it rehydrate a lot faster. So you can make one of these. You can go out and buy all the material to make it, or you can pick one of these up. But regardless, a good hack is using a rehydration pouch to keep everything insulated and let it rehydrate faster. Next up is less of a hack, and again, another way to save a couple bucks, make cheap gear at home and be more efficient when you're cooking, and that is when it comes to conserving fuel on the trail. Everybody knows that when you go to boil water or cook, using something like a lid is gonna make it boil faster and just be more efficient on fuel. Well, a lot of new cook pots, jet boils, bigger pots, even the pot that I use these days has a nice lightweight titanium lid with it. But a lot of the pots back in the day, and well, the pot that I used for years didn't have a lid. Well, it came with a lid, but it was a super heavy, clunky stainless steel lid for some reason. Ultralight titanium mug, but a stainless steel lid. I got rid of that years ago, but instead of trying to find a lid or buy a lid, I just would make my own out of tin foil. You guys have probably seen that in a lot of my videos, a lot of my trail videos, but I would just take a piece of aluminum foil, I would fold it over a bunch of times, fold it into a square or shape it into a circle, and then I have a makeshift lid that didn't cost me anything, that is super compact when I fold it up and very ultralight. When I'm done with it and I'm ready to pack it up, I just fold it back up into like a little square, I throw it down in there, I put my fuel on top, I put my stove on top of that, and then boom, I have my whole cook kit in my pot. When it wears out, I just find some aluminum foil and I make a new one. So a good way to just make a free piece of gear and be more efficient when you go to cook. And then the last thing that I have for you is, again, less of a hack and more of just a cool piece of gear, and that comes down to being efficient with fuel. Now, again, I cannot tell you how many of these 3.9 ounce cans that I've bought over the last 9 years, but as you can see, I got a bunch of them sitting up here, and most of these cans have just a little bit of fuel left in them. So if you're like me, you either have them on a shelf or you throw them in a box, and then every time you go out on a backpacking trip, you buy a new one. Well, these things are about $6 or $7 a piece, and typically most people will not take a can that barely has any fuel left out onto the trail because you might run out fast, so you get a new can. Well, I've stopped buying these, and instead I've started buying these big 450 gram cans. So where one of these 100 grams costs $6 or $7, one of these 450 gram cans cost about $10 or $11. So I keep this at home, and then I picked up one of these little fuel transfer devices. So there's the Flip Fuel, which is actually made here in Arizona, pretty cool, or there's these little knockoffs on Amazon. And basically all it is you take this, you attach it to the top of your can of fuel, your smaller can, or your empty can, or somewhat empty can, and then you take your bigger can, you thread it on the top, you open this up, and it transfers the fuel from the big can into the small one. I've started doing this because, well, number one, it saves on money. Buying 4 of these smaller cans at $6 or $7 a piece, what is that? $24 for 400 grams, or I can get 450 grams for $10 to $11 and buy one of these little fuel transfer devices. So it's less money, it saves on space, I'm more efficient, and I know that I'm gonna have a full can of fuel every time I head out onto the trail. All right, guys, that's it. That's kind of all of my little tips and tricks for this video when it comes to food and cooking out on the trail. Speaking of that, what are some of your tips or tricks or hacks that you've been doing over the years when it comes to food and cooking? Leave us something down below and let us know your thought, and tell everybody, because it's always fun to learn what other people are doing. Guys, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourselves. I hope you're taking care of each other. I love you, and as always, thanks for watching.